As East Africa struggles through a drought, experts say climate change may be making conditions more severe. Rescuing girls from the horror of female genital mutilation in Kenya. We'll have a report. And cracking the coconut products craze in the United States. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Now, the Kenyan military claims it has killed at least 31 al-Shabaab militants in a raid on two of their bases in the southern Somali region of Jubaland. Now, according to the statement released on Monday, Kenyan military forces also captured arms, including 11 AK-47 assault rifles, communications equipment and uniforms. The East African nation has thousands of its troops in the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM, to help curb al-Shabaab and improve security as part of a reconstruction drive after 2 decades of civil war that shattered the country. Kenya sent troops into Somalia in 2011 after a series of attacks on Kenyan soil by the al-Qaeda-affiliated terrorists. Well, Somalian President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed has urged regional leaders to look at every available option in order to avoid another famine in the country. At a special summit on Somali refugees in Nairobi Saturday, President Mohamed, commonly known as Farmer Joe, asked the leaders of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development to help his country find a durable solution to the Somali refugee crisis, including reintegration of returnees inside the Horn of Africa nation.
Today, about 2.5 million Somali refugees and IDPs live in camps in and out of the country. Tragically, some have lived in the camps for 3 generations, all because the environment was not conducive enough in Somalia for them to return. That said, many have voluntarily returned over the past few years as conditions in their regions have improved gradually.
Well, President Mohamed says many Somalis have voluntarily returned over the past few years as conditions in Somalia have improved gradually, but there are still challenges.
However, the current drought and the looming famine pose yet another challenge to voluntarily to return. We must not leave stone unturned to avert another famine in Somalia.
Well, the Nairobi summit took place as pressure grows on the Dadaab refugee camp, the biggest in the world that has hosted hundreds of thousands of Somali refugees for decades. An estimated 1.1 million people are internally displaced within Somalia, and nearly 900,000 are refugees in the region. Well, as East Africa struggles through a drought, scientists say climate change may be making the situation worse. VOA's Steve Baragona looks at how a warming planet may be altering the weather patterns that bring rain to the region.
The rains failed late last year, and the rains before that were meager. Livestock have died, crops have failed. Famine threatens Somalia for the 2nd time this decade. While drought is not uncommon in this dry region, it's gotten worse, says University of California at Santa Barbara climate scientist Chris Funk.
Yeah, so what we've seen over the last, say, 35 years is that the rainfall during what's called the long rains has declined substantially.
Funk says the explanation may lie in an atmospheric cycle that links East Africa and the Pacific Ocean. Warm, wet air rises over the western Pacific, causing rain over Southeast Asia. On the other side of the cycle, dry air descends over East Africa. That's why not much rain falls here, even in normal years. But when the western Pacific is warmer, it pushes the whole system harder. More rain over Southeast Asia and more dry air descending on East Africa. More dry air means more drought. And Chris Funk says the ocean is getting warmer.
The warming over the western Pacific, appears to be, pretty much directly related to increasing greenhouse gases in the atmosphere.
Research shows that in the past, a warmer planet meant a drier East Africa. But Funk says it's not entirely clear whether the current drying trend will continue.
You know, one of the things making it hard to look into the future is the fact that the story told by the global climate models, the climate change models, is pretty much exactly the opposite of what we're seeing in East Africa.
The models say it should be getting wetter, but experts increasingly think the models may be flawed in this area. Funk and others are working on it. The short term is more clear. The Western Pacific is still warmer than average, which means the forecast is for a third season of disappointing rains. Steve Baragona, VOA News.
Well, still in East Africa, 6 aid workers were killed in an ambush in South Sudan over the weekend while traveling from Juba to the town of Pibor. The victims were 3 South Sudanese and 3 Kenyans. United Nations officials say the attack occurred at a remote territory largely under government control, but fought over by both sides in the conflict and plagued by militias and other armed groups. The UN says Saturday's attack was the highest number of aid workers killed in a single incident since the country's civil war began in December 2013. Now, coalition forces in Iraq are continuing their battle to retake Mosul from Islamic State militants. The escalation of fighting has had a heavy toll on the civilian population in the densely populated western part of the city. It is not clear how many civilians were killed or how. Figures range from 60 to 200. VOA's Zlatica Zahok reports.
Civilians are fleeing the violence in western Mosul, where the Iraqi army bombards Islamic State positions and the militants stage their own attacks using suicide bombers and forcing local residents to serve as human shields.
We were fired upon from the coalition air force. The Islamic State snipers go to the top of the buildings that have families, and the Air Force strikes these buildings, killing them and everyone in the house.
The Iraqi army paused the offensive temporarily amid reports that a coalition air raid in western Mosul last week destroyed a building, killing numerous civilians inside. Officials say they are investigating whether the building was actually hit by a coalition strike or an Islamic State suicide bomber. A makeshift hospital was set up in western Mosul to treat the wounded.
An Islamic State sniper fired at my relative but missed. When he ran, they fired again, and a bullet hit his leg. This is the 3rd person from the family that Islamic State snipers hit.
Islamic State is putting up a fierce resistance in an effort to retain its hold on Mosul, a place where Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi announced the establishment of a so-called caliphate straddling Iraq and Syria. But the coalition forces have retaken a large part of the city and its outskirts since the launch of a massive offensive in October, including the mosque where al-Baghdadi made the announcement in July of 2014.
My feeling is this is where the caliphate started, and this is where the caliphate will end, God willing.
Several new F-16 fighter jets arrived from the United States to a military base north of Baghdad on Saturday to boost Iraq's air force in its fight against Islamic State. Zlatica Zahok, VOA News, Washington.
Well, back here in the U.S., Republicans are reeling after failing in their first major test of 2017, repealing and replacing former President Barack Obama's signature health care law. As VOA's Michael Bowman reports, last week's legislative train wreck showed that despite controlling the White House and both houses of Congress, Republicans may not have a governing majority capable of delivering on the party's promises to voters.
President Donald Trump's weekly address Saturday invited Americans to look to the heavens.
We renew our national commitment to NASA's mission of exploration and discovery.
One day after his first major legislative push crashed and burned in Washington.
Further consideration of H.R. 1628 is postponed.
I will not sugarcoat this. This is a disappointing day for us.
After 7 years of promising a better plan than Obamacare, Republicans shelved their own health care bill when it became clear it would not pass the House of Representatives. Analyst Don Kettle spoke via Skype.
It's serious in terms of what this says for the president's future legislative agenda. He's got the budget, he's got the infrastructure plan, he's got tax reform, he's got a lot of very big issues that he wants to move forward on. All of them are going to require some action from Congress.
Ultra-conservative Republicans who revolted against the health care bill insist their party can still deliver in other areas.
I can tell you what most Americans need and want. They need lower intrusion from the federal government in their lives. They need lower taxes so that they can take more of their paycheck home. And I know that President Trump and those in the GOP conference are committed to making sure that that happens.
Democrats, meanwhile, have started a new line of attack, arguing that until more is known about Russia's meddling in last year's election, Trump's agenda should be put on hold, including his Supreme Court nominee, Judge Neil Gorsuch.
Let's see where this investigation goes for a few months and delay it. It's up to our Republican colleagues. I hope they'll accept that argument.
But the White House insists there will be no pause on Trump's agenda.
And he's got a lot left on the agenda that he wants to get done, whether it's, immigration, taxes, the border wall.
Except for rebuilding America's infrastructure, there is little on the president's to-do list that will attract Democratic support. Passing legislation will require Republican unity, a commodity the party could not muster last week. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook. So check us out and share our show with your friends. And also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now coming up, Kenyan activists shield girls from the brutality of FGM. Stay with us.
Here's what's new. It's no ordinary blue t-shirt. Just pair it with a smartphone with a virtuality app from Curoscope, co-founded by Ed Barton.
This is the Virtuality app. We have programmed it as such so that it recognizes the t-shirt and can see the organs as though they were really there. You can see this is a realistic heart animation, and we can move around it as though it is really there and go very, very, very close to it, and also quite far away. So you can actually explore my body as though you could see under my skin.
Which is strange, but despite its curiosity, this augmented reality system can be a valuable teaching tool.
But certainly a lot of kids that we spoke to whilst we were founding the company didn't find biology that interesting. And we just saw there was a huge opportunity to connect people to science, but also to health and to their fitness.
The Virtuality t-shirt costs about $25, but the app itself is free. For VOA's What's New, I'm Martin Seacrest.
Well, the United Nations Populations Fund estimates that over 200 million women and girls worldwide have undergone some form of female genital mutilation. Now, the UN agency supports efforts for the total global abandonment of that practice. Anti-FGM activists say that although the practice is declining in countries like Kenya, more efforts are needed in engaging with communities where the practice is still prevalent. Now, viewers Jackson Vunganyi was in Narok County, Kenya, and visited a rescue house that shelters young women that have fled their communities for fear of undergoing FGM.
Even though the Kenyan government banned the traditional practice known as FGM, or female genital mutilation, in 2011, research shows that the practice continues in many Kenyan communities, including the Maasai, who view the practice as a rite of passage for girls who fall between the ages of 6 to 17 years. In Narok County, reports show that over 500 girls drop out of school each year because of the practice that often leads to early child marriages. The girls that are not cut are often forced to flee their communities, seeking refuge in rescue centers like this one, known as the House of Hope.
One of the rescue homes that houses about 80 young women that escape their villages, running away from a threat of early marriage and FGM. So we're going to go inside and visit some of the dorms. It's called the House of Hope. These are the facilities, the houses, the rooms that are used as a living room, living space. This is the kitchen with some of the young ladies preparing lunch. This is the matron of the house. This is one of their dorms. Currently, I think the space was built to house about 33 girls. They have over 80 girls at the moment. Let's check out the other rooms. Oh, this is one of the other dorms too. Hi guys, how are you? What are you doing?
The House of Hope Rescue Center, which acts as a temporary safe house before the girls are reunited with their families, was founded in 2014 by a former teacher, Patrick Ngigi, and his wife, Josephine. He says that education plays an important role in reducing the number of girls who get cut and forced into early child marriages.
Those that are in school mostly do not. It's not all of them that get married. But those that are not in school, they obviously have to get married immediately after the cutting.
The World Health Organization views FGM as a violation of the rights of both girls and women. But it's so deep-rooted in many of these communities that even the girls that have not undergone it at the behest of their parents will often feel the social pressure.
You see, there is also the peer pressure. Some of the girls feel that there is that feeling that if you don't undergo FGM, then you're an outcast. And so some of them opt. So you'll even find a child of a very senior church leader who is fighting against FGM, but she runs away from home and does it so that she does not get, she feels that she's part of the community.
Patrick says that one of the reasons FGM is still practiced in some of these communities is the failure of local leaders to confront and speak out against the issue. He recalls a case of a local member of parliament.
And the politician said, you have no right to interfere with our culture. And he told the congregation, the people in the meeting, that they have the freedom to do what they want with their children. And they clapped a lot. So when you are a teacher and the person who is an opinion leader is not ready to support you, it's a big problem.
Research shows that there is a steady decline in the number of girls undergoing FGM. But as Patrick and other anti-FGM activists say, overall progress is still slow, especially in rural communities. And they hope that aside from enforcing the law, government can do more by increasing access to education for girls. For Voice of America, I'm Jackson Vunganyi.
Well, a massive renewable energy project could change the seascape of the Welsh city of Swansea in coming years. Now, the plan is to encase the city's lagoon in a horseshoe-shaped causeway that will serve as a giant tidal generator. Now, the 4-year project is massive, but if it's approved, would create a long-term reliable source of clean energy. VOA's Kevin Enoch reports.
The 9.5-kilometer horseshoe would literally ring the harbor of Swansea. Once in place, the huge tides on the English coast will be spinning turbines and creating huge amounts of energy.
We open the gates in the tidal lagoon, we let the water through the turbines, and we generate electricity. It's 5 Olympic swimming pools worth of electricity every second, and that generates enough electricity for 155,000 homes per year.
The core of the project is this massive generator that is equipped with more than 20 6-meter-high turbines that spin when the tide goes in and the tide goes out, 4 times a day. That is energy the designers say residents can count on, unlike wind and solar, which can be weather dependent.
So that's the biggest difference between tidal power and, say, wind and solar power, is that the wind is intermittent and you get the sun during the day. With the tides, you always have certain electricity at certain times of the day, and then that's staggered, it shifts by 40 minutes every day.
The causeway will be created by slowly building it up with giant sandbags. And on top of that, a 9-kilometer causeway for running, biking, and sightseeing that proponents say will last hundreds of years.
Once we build the breakwater wall, it's going to be there for the next 120 years. When we put the turbines in, they're there for the next 120 years. So what's quite interesting about this piece of infrastructure is it's intergenerational. It'll last for the next 5 generations, producing power throughout its lifetime, working with the rhythm of the tides.
The project will cost an estimated $1.6 billion and take 4 years to build. But it will go a long way towards replacing aging nuclear plants and help the United Kingdom meet its clean energy goals. Kevin Enochs, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. What's behind the America's booming coconut trends? We'll be right back. To the wall. To the table, right?
Our region is currently in the grip of a severe drought affecting the life.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here is what's trending. The use, or rather retailers in the U.S. are going cocoa for coconut products, from oils and sugars to syrups and sauces. Here at Whole Food Markets in Los Angeles, the supermarket chain has a coconut-related products on almost every aisle. The supermarket chain's global buyers even named coconut everything as one of its top food trends for 2017. Despite its popularity, there is no evidence that coconut oil is better or healthier than other vegetable oils. Now, the 2010 Dietary Guidelines for Americans advises people to treat coconut oil just like any other saturated fat, meaning limiting intake to 10% or less of daily calories in order to cut the risk of heart disease. One next up, a house clad in mirrors pops out of the California desert. This is Doug Atkins' Mirage, one of the showstoppers of Desert X, an exhibition of 16 site-specific monumental works by international artists that spans Southern California's Coachella Valley. The success of the exhibition highlights the growing creative cloud of Los Angeles and Palm Springs, where new galleries and museums, prestigious fashion shows, and trendy tourism destinations offer a counterweight to New York on the other side of the country. Economic factors are driving the shift, with many artists fleeing the high rents of the Big Apple. Well, and finally, when you think of high fashion, you probably don't think of 3D printing. But designer Shan Esterhuizen from the Australian capital Canberra is trying to shake up fashion by taking her digital dreams to Canada. She has made an entire dress using 3D printers and hopes to make the industry more sustainable for future generations. With the support of a local design company, this dress has taken months of meticulous planning and 800 hours of printing. Now, the cost, about $68,000. And that is what is trending today. Well, in today's special edition of our Music Maker segments, we have a special treat. Folk music lovers recently gathered in southeast Morocco at the International Nomads Festival. The three-day International Nomads event, now in its 14th year, aims to preserve the music, customs, and traditions of the region's various nomadic tribes. Heather Maxwell, VOS Music Time in Africa host, attended the festival and joins us to tell us more about it. Welcome back from the desert.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the second time you're attending this. Yeah, shukran, they say. How was it? First, why the desert? Why this on the sand? Most of this is like right in the middle of the desert, right?
Yeah, well, why the desert to have the festival?
Yeah.
Because Morocco is interested in, building their tourist industry.
Okay.
And one of the ways is by looking at what kind of music traditions do we have here. And one of them is the Sahel, the Saharian nomadic music traditions.
Which is beautiful because many times many countries will bring these festivals to the city and do it in like some hall, some kind of big theater. But this is right there.
This is right there. This is in this little town called Mohammed Al Ghizlan, which means the plains of the gazelle. And it's an oasis town. I think it's one of the very last ones before it opens right up into the Sahara.
Yeah. Now I'm saying one of the guys was Bambino, famous and popular across the entire Sahel region. How was it like to have someone like that perform?
It was very exciting. On a personal level, I really love Bambino. He's just getting better and better. But also, the crowd were so thrilled to have Bambino there. They felt like this is one of our own. You know, he is from Niger, but he's from a nomadic tradition, and that's his music represents that. And people in the community who were there at the festival were young people, old people, all kinds. Were so thrilled and proud.
Women. I see, we have this lady performing, the video just running right now. And it wasn't just people singing and dancing, but there was also some other things on the side, right?
Well, there were other things. This is all about nomadic traditions and culture. And so there was...
hockey playing on the side.
Hockey playing.
Yeah, that's cool.
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah.
There was also... bread making.
Yeah.
Now this is a group from Mali, a Tuareg group called Terracuff, and they were also really great. It was wonderful to meet them. They are fantastic. Also another sort of blues Sahel sounding guitar group.
Yeah. But some of those people actually are recording artists who are already well known. But the culture, the country wants people to literally go to those people's kind of environment and experience where this culture comes from.
Exactly. Well, because it's connected. I mean, the way you make music, the way they perform is connected to the environment. So everybody wants that experience. It's part of it. You know, being in the desert under the stars, or it really. It's
so just in a few seconds, do you get that feel that the inspiration also comes just from that environment?
It does. I was inspired, Vincent. I was writing songs tonight.
Looking up in the sky and seeing the blue, clear sky, the stars,
just fantastic.
And the sun around you. Amazing. So we're going to have you come back, of course, to tell us more, share with us some of the stuff you brought back, although we've seen some of this beautiful video. Heather, thank you very much for being with us today. As always, I want to thank her very much for another fantastic Music Makers segment. Now, to learn more about Heather Maxwell and her VOA radio show, visit Facebook and type in the keywords Music Time in Africa. And you can see what time our program can be heard in your area and get more information about some of our featured artists. And that's our show for today. Now, be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings, Today Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Most people enjoy listening to music. But is this expression actually about songs and tunes?
Music to my ears.
Jonathan, I cannot believe we have to work over the weekend.
Did you not hear the news? The meeting for the project got canceled. No work this weekend after all.
Awesome! That is music to